Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another Nerd Herd. Today we have something I think is an interesting topic. So, you know, me and Nathan have mentioned our time at Calvary before. So, the other days, uh, while we were teaching a lesson to kids, Nathan, the subject matter reminded me of a question that got asked when I was back in college, when I was back at Calvary. When, you know, I think Nathan was there too, and he might record his own video on this. I don't know. We might record a podcast on it later. But I just thought I'd record a nerd herd on it to basically just satiate my want of talking about it again. So, the question that was asked back then was, could Jesus sin? Now, obvious answer, no. But there's a little bit more nuance to it than just saying, oh, no, Jesus is God, he can't sin. Now, let me explain. Yes, because Jesus is God, he cannot sin. He cannot do something that is completely antithetical to his nature, to his to who he is as a person, as a being, you know. And if the Son is sinning, that would probably mean the Father is sinning, and if the Father is sinning, that means the Spirit is sinning, because they are all one being. So, Jesus as God, no, he could not sin, because sinning is something so completely antithetical to his nature, to who he is, to what he is, that he cannot do it. You know, God describes himself as holy, as righteous. He cannot then become unrighteous and unholy by doing something that that is of those things, that is sin. However, a lot of people ignore, you know, now that the basic answer is out of the way, a lot of people ignore the fact that Jesus was also a man. Now, yes, you could say Jesus was a man born without a sin nature. That is true. Jesus was a man born without a sin nature. But a lot of people forget that Adam was a man born without a sin nature. Eve was a woman born without a sin nature. You know, and you know that that is part of who they were, and yet they still sin. So Jesus, the human, could have sinned, but that would mean he's not God. You know, it's an amazing thing that me and my friends had a long discussion about. Um, so you might say, so my answer is yes and no. Jesus, the man, could sin, but because Jesus was also fully God, he could not have sinned. Which sounds weird because it's like, okay, he can sin, but he can't. Uh, what a lot of people also forget is if is on the other side. Some people just say no and ignore Jesus being a man. Some people say yes and ignore Jesus being God. But that's the thing. Jesus was in his life. Jesus was at the same time both 100% God and 100% man. Now Nathan says it differently, but I'm gonna say it that way. We cannot fully comprehend what exactly Jesus. Well, Jesus being God, we cannot fully comprehend what he was. But Jesus being both God and man at the same time without it being like a 50-50 split or like a 70-10 split or something like that, you know, it being a split. He's both, but he's more one of the up than he's more of one than of the other. That no, Jesus is equally and truly a part, both 100% part, not like part God and part man. He is 100% both man and God at the same time, which we can't comprehend because we don't know how God worked in that way. Um, but also we don't know exactly what Jesus was and wasn't capable of. Like Philippians chapter 2 says he said, mentioned him sacrificing, humbling himself and coming down to live as a man or as a servant, depending on your translation. And we don't know what that means. What parts of being God did he give up? And again, I don't like that. That it's basically the process of him becoming a man. In the process of him becoming a man, what of the powers, his powers as have him being God, could he access at any given time? We don't understand that. As far as why I say yes, there are several passages. Um, I'll start with what I think is maybe the weaker one. When Jesus made the whip to cleanse the temple, it said he went in and saw the people changing money and all that stuff. Then he went and braided a whip. Now, we read earlier about Jesus getting tempted in the wilderness. More on that later. Part of how I read this, how I see the scriptures, is I believe I believe Satan continuously tempted Jesus throughout his life, or at least throughout his ministry. So I believe the 3 times we read about aren't the only 3 times that Satan tempted Jesus. Now they're the most prominent, and they're sort of a test for Jesus, but I don't think that's the last time Satan tried to tempt Jesus into, hey, cleanse the temple, however you want, call down, lightning from heaven, or smite these people, however you want. In the Garden of Gethsemane, when he's praying for the cup to pass from him, you can't. I have a feeling that Satan was whispering in his ear, saying, "Hey, it would be really easy for you just to run away now. You're apart from your disciples. You're apart. Judas and the guards aren't here yet. You can run away. Your disciples will never know. They'll never come looking for you." So that's just something that I personally believe. You all can believe something else if you choose to. Now let's get back to Jesus being tempted in the wilderness. The premise of being tempted at all means that there is a capability of sin. Now, again, keep in mind, I know this is a big thought, but keep in mind that yes, Jesus is God, so it's impossible for him to sin at all. Satan should have known it, but he didn't because he's an idiot. Jesus as God could not sin. If he sinned, he would no longer be God. So, but the fact that Satan was even attempting it, thought that there was even the slightest chance that Jesus could sin. He was probably thinking to himself, like, yeah, it's perfect being. Well, so what? I go back to the garden. I tempted them to sin. They were perfect beings. But Satan failed to realize that Jesus as God the Son, wasn't just your ordinary. It wasn't the Adam and Eve type of perfect. He wasn't a perfect being. He was the perfect being, if that makes sense. And that's where my thoughts are. Is yes, Jesus Christ the man could sin, but Jesus Christ. Okay, let me rephrase. Jesus the man could sin. Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, could not sin. If he could have sinned, he would not have been God. And And that's where I'm gonna end the discussion there. I hope this was a little bit helpful for y'all. Um, if not, at least informative. And I would love to see your comments. Um, by way of reminder, I announced this in another video, I think, but I think we'll announce it in the podcast too. Um, the Patreon will be going off, or will be going offline at the end of the month. So February 28th will be the end of Patreon. So if you all want to subscribe to that, go and subscribe. Uh, See y'all later. Gotta find my mouse. Hey, see you guys.